If the president and his top aides treat people with different views as enemies instead of listening to what they have to say, they're likely to end up with a narrow view and a feeling that the whole world is out to get them. And as those of us who served in the Nixon administration know, that can get you into a lot of trouble.
That was Republican Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, who accused the White House this week of street brawling with opponents and said the West Wing strategy of freezing out its critics is the modern-day equivalent of President Richard Nixon's enemies list. The attacks on this network have been well publicized, but the White House is waging another war as well, this one on businesses that fight its agenda. The United States Chamber of Commerce is the latest group to find itself an administration target, having voiced opposition to many of the president's priorities, including some aspects of health care reform, financial regulation, and climate change legislation. We're back with Mary O'Grady and Kim Strassel, and Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger also joins us. So, Kim, Chamber is an umbrella group for thousands of businesses, large and small. Why would you fight with a business lobby, if you're trying to persuade that lobby to help you on these issues?
It's called divide and conquer. I mean, the idea here, this is a very deliberate thing. That what has bothered the White House about the Chamber is that the Chamber is very effective about the things when it does push back. It's actually given the administration some help on things like stimulus, etc.
It was for the stimulus.
For cash for clunkers, for the TARP bailouts, for everything. But, you know, what they have pushed back on is card check, on climate, on some of this financial regulation.
Check is the union organizing, making it easier to organize unions.
Yeah, so this bothers the White House. What they're trying to do is undermine the organization so they can then pick on individual CEOs. CEOs are easily intimidated, get them to distance themselves from the Chamber, and then the Chamber is a less forceful group. That's what they're looking for.
Seems to be working in some ways. You have 4 or 5 big companies that have resigned from parts of the Chamber, if not the entire Chamber. Exelon, the big utility, a couple others on cap and trade. Apple Computer, where Al Gore is on the board, resigned in a peak over climate change.
Well, first of all, I think we should make it clear that it's not unusual for a business group to be interested in subsidies. So we shouldn't be surprised that they've climbed on board with some of the things that the Obama administration has done. But I think what you're seeing here is a little bit of what I would call their corporatist agenda. I mean, under corporatism, which is an economic model that links business, labor, and government together, government has to give business its legitimacy. It signs off on which businesses are legitimate, and it does not support really an entrepreneurial.
You pick winners and losers.
Exactly.
As opposed to support for markets.
Yeah, and the Chamber here has not been, you know, they're not global warming deniers. They're not against a government subsidy in health care. They just don't like the particular model that's been set forth here. So the fact that they're pushing back and there's some dissent, the White House doesn't like it.
Well, Paul, maybe we should think lower, as someone once said, about what's going on here.
Yeah. Get out of this policy biz and start to get into the real dirty stuff.
Right. Look, a lot of what this administration is trying to do, the health care initiative, cap and trade legislation, card check, is really not, despite what they say, in the mainstream. They think it's in the mainstream. It's hard. They've been having a hard time passing this stuff. And so what they've decided to do is use the full force and power of the federal government to say to these institutions, look, if you oppose us, this is what's going to happen to you. Remember, the insurance industry was with them on health care until that strategy wasn't working. So they just carved out the insurance industry and made them the enemy.
Medical device industry, they said, you know, all the industries, you got to ante up a certain amount of money. The device makers didn't ante up enough, so they hit them with a $40 billion tax.
This is blackjack politics.
And it's not just that. I mean, look, when Humana, which is an insurer, sent out information to its customers saying Medicare Advantage is going to get cut under Obamacare, they got hit with a gag order.
Which is true, by the way.
Yeah, which is true, but they got hit with a gag order from the federal government. When the insurers came out recently and criticized the most recent health care product, this week the Congress was talking about stripping them of their antitrust immunity.
This is pretty raw thuggery.
Part of the problem is that the Obama campaign had such smooth sailing. Everybody loved him. Everybody climbed on board. And now when he starts to run into some resistance, I think he doesn't really know how to deal with it. And he's reverting to his most basic instincts from Chicago.
To your point, Mary, they are really trying to restructure the American economy, moving it towards more of a social market economy like Europe, where the government does guide in many ways. It's a much more stronger regulatory phenomenon, and it takes a lot of effort to do that. You have got to push the private sector in the United States to accept this, and that's what they're doing.
Kim, you talked to Tom Donahue, head of the chamber, this week. Does it look like he's backing off?
No, it doesn't. And you know, at that interview, he was certainly not out and aggressive about some of the people, the White House and others who attacked them, but definitely strong, unbowed. It's sort of the argument is we have the right to go out there and complain and talk about the things that we don't like and that it's not good for our business community, and we're going to keep doing that.
What are the dangers here, Dan, for a White House that plays this kind of bare-knuckle politics? I mean, early in an administration, you have all the power, but sooner or later, I assume you're going to need some Republicans. You're going to need some conservatives, and if you've alienated them all, when you need them on Afghanistan or something, they may not be there.
Well, they may not be there, and I also think there's a media problem, Paul. The word Nixonian is getting kicked around. Richard Nixon was president in the 1970s. This is 2009. Media presence is pervasive, and when you elevate it the way it has been elevated, it doesn't look very attractive. And that was Barack Obama's biggest attribute. He was an attractive new politician. He's starting to look kind of tarnished.
All right, Dan, thank you. When